Welcome back to Tiny Grimes Games. Today I'm going to do a review of the spoiled cards from yesterday's Blizzard stream for the upcoming set. I have D Lineman joining me today, and we're going to go through and talk about these cards. Starting at the beginning, D, what do you think so far generally of the spoiled cards? Are you intrigued? Are you thinking they're overpowered? Are you thinking they're underpowered? What's just a general impression you've had?
They're not overpowered yet, but I can't wait to see what kind of aggro-inspired decks end up coming out of the meta.
Yeah, I've had a similar reaction where looking at each card individually, almost every one I've thought, it's kind of underwhelming. But, depending on what the rest of the cards are and how they synergize, it could be really good down the road. So I guess let's just take a look at each of these cards. Coldarra Drake, obviously most interesting about it is the fact that you can use your power any number of times. But D, what do you think? I mean, 6-drop to be able to use your power any number of times. Is that going to be good outside of a combo?
Well, what kind of combo are you speaking of? The tough way to it's so tough to evaluate this card, right? Because it's a mage card, so you're talking about a card that's going to completely change the way mage is played, and it's going to be tough to do that without knowing the other cards that are coming out yet. But the cards that we've seen so far look like they synergize really well with it. Maiden of the Lake makes your hero power cheaper. Fallen Hero makes it do twice as much damage. It seems that you'll be able to synergize with it well. The tough part is we're talking about having minions that stick to the board for multiple turns.
Yes,
Um,
that's exactly
so
my problem with it. Fallen Hero, at least, it doesn't have to stick to the board. But even so, let's say turn 6 you play this card in the perfect world. Then what? Turn 7 you're gonna power. You're gonna do 3 shots, even if you have Fallen Hero on the board somehow earlier. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it sort of seems like a magical Christmas land card that if everything comes together, it could be amazing. I'm really struggling to see how it's good outside of the full combo.
Well, I mean, it need not be that greedy. Let's take a scenario where you are able to get Kodorider Drake to stick. That's not completely unreasonable. It is a 6 health minion for 6 mana. It could very well stick. If the following turn you play Nexus Champion Saraad and Hero Power, even if it doesn't cost 1 for Maiden of the Lake, you're getting a spell in your hand, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, if Maiden of the Lake were to stick, which again isn't unreasonable because that's a 6 health minion for 4 mana, then we're talking about true dream scenarios. But simply comboing Kodorider Drake with Nexus Champion seems cool.
Yeah. I think Nexus Champion is the best card that uses Inspire that I've seen. So let's just skip to that card and we'll come back to the others. Nexus Champion to me seems like that card that may change the way a number of decks are played. Just say turn 7 going, I get a 4 or 5 and a draw. It's a random spell, so there's gonna be some math done, I think, to figure out how good that draw is. But that seems like a really promising card to me.
All right, so I know I mentioned the good scenarios of having Kodorider Drake with Nexus Champion Saraad,
Mm.
but let's not get too crazy. Nexus Champion Saraad is not a good card, and I highly doubt that we're gonna see a lot of decks running this. It will, yeah, of course, it'll change the way decks are played, but Raid Leader is gonna would change the way that decks are played if people were to play that card, and people don't. Uh,
It's I don't know. It's interesting. It's something like again, it's a combo card, right? So if you were to play it in say a late game hunter that comes around because of lock and load, and so then you're able to do something where you use him. You're getting 2 damage with the hero power anyway. You're getting a card that you're then comboing with lock and load. I don't know. The problem again is you really have to play him turn 7 to ensure that you get anything out of him. That's my
yeah, you know
problem
what
with
the
these.
problem with that is? Yeah, he has 5 health.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing that I feel like people aren't doing as they're looking at these cards is looking at them in comparison. 5 drops. I mean, you got Sludge Belcher, so you'd have to play this guy over a Sludge Belcher, and that's pretty tough. Lotheb, are you really playing him over Lotheb? I don't know. Harrison Jones, right now, Harrison Jones is amazing in the meta. So I think we get stuck in the spot where we look at some of these cards and we get excited, and then we don't think about what they have to go in over. So I don't
It's
know. It's
funny though,
interesting.
because you mentioned that, and I don't see decks that would run Nexus Champion that would also want to run Sludge Belcher.
I think that's reasonable.
And further, Harrison Jones is going to be bad because weapons are going to be bad. I can easily imagine a scenario where the meta is full of these decks that have minions that flood the board. We're talking about Shaman potentially getting better.
Hmm.
We haven't seen the Druid cards yet, but with the way that these decks are themed so far, it seems that there are a lot more tokens coming out with the Kodorider that we're going to see later.
Hmm.
Weapons are going to get worse because they only remove one target.
That's true. That's a good point. So we'll have to see. But I don't know. Interesting. Basically, both Coldarra Drake and Nexus Champion seem like they're bad on their own, but comboed could be good. I don't know.
Say
That's
one
hard
thing
to
though,
evaluate.
Nexus Champion Saraad is going to win a lot of arena games.
Yes. Yeah, there are going to be a lot of videos with him. A
Yes.
lot of videos are going to get made. I got Pyroblast, and then I won. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so let's look at Maiden of the Lakes then, since she's sort of part of this trilogy of magical Christmas land. What do you think of her on her own?
I think she's amazing. Yeah, it's an incredible card. I think that a 4 mana 2/6. You remember those times where hunter decks, every hunter deck looked like it ran Oasis Snapjaw, and it wasn't solely because it was a beast. It was because it was a really good body on turn 4.
Sure.
In spite of it being able to be buffed from Houndmaster, etc. Now we're talking about a card that it may not be a beast, but a 2/6 versus a 2/7 on turn 4, there's not much difference there. What we're talking about now is Maiden of the Lake helps you ramp. Having your hero power, having that extra mana crystal on every turn that you have Maiden of the Lake on the board for is huge. It's like having an innervate.
Well, I mean, sort of. That is if you're planning to use your hero power. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
But that's the thing is that we're playing Maiden of the Lake in decks that are running cards with Inspire,
Yeah,
right?
that's a good point. That is a good
So
point.
now the hero power has more value than simply 2 armor, right?
Sure.
And being able to weave that in much more comfortably. Like imagine, like would you play if you were to have unlimited access to a 1 mana spell that gives your hero +1 attack and +1 armor? I'd run that in my hand. I'd run that in my deck. This is what Maiden of the Lake gives you.
Hmm.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to looking at decks and figuring out the 4-drop situation. And I think it's a good point that a lot of decks don't have good 4-drops. And I think that's why we see Shredder in nearly every deck, because there just aren't a ton of 4-drop minions.
Well, there's that, and also Paladin Shredder being insane. I, I
That's it.
I'm not sure that Paladin Shredder is gonna fall to the wayside to Maiden of the Lake. I think that they'll both see as much play in the decks in which they're relevant,
Mm-hmm.
and Maiden of the Lake is relevant in Inspire decks. And you'll definitely see this run over Paladin Shredder, or both of those cards be run. But in every other deck, you'll probably still see Paladin Shredder unless another crazy 4-drop comes out.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. It's interesting that they really are pushing this Inspire mechanic, and we're just gonna have to see how far they push it, right? Because if they push it enough, then all these cards are gonna be amazing. If they don't push it quite enough, then they're all gonna be garbage, or not garbage, but not very good. And so it's
Mhm.
it's gonna be interesting how that works out. What do you think of Poison Blade? This is kind of interesting that you can buff your attack on your weapon.
This card is terrible. I don't even want to talk about how bad this card is. This card is so bad.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can't even envision a scenario, arena or constructed, where I'm gonna feel okay about Poison Blade. You can't even play Coldarra Drake in rogue decks. It's so bad.
I don't know. It's interesting. So I could certainly envision an arena where you play it, but constructed, it is tough because what Assassin's Blade is 5, and it's just 100,000 times better.
It's an epic. Name me 3 other epics that
That's a
you
good
can
point.
encounter in a rogue draft that you'd rather pick Poison Blade over.
The 1/1 patient assassin guy. I think I'd rather have this over him. Maybe not. I don't know. That'd be a toss up. Yeah. I don't
So
know.
bad.
Yeah, it's not great, but it's interesting. We'll give it that. Okay, let's move on to the next.
It's not even interesting. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace to
Disgrace.
card games.
I'm not going to go that far with you, D. D, you might have gone too far there. All right. Let's see. So we've got, and by the way, these images are coming from Hearthpawn, so just to give credit where credit is due. All right. So Skycap'n Crag, he is the coolest card that looks like complete garbage to me. So tell me why this card is not complete garbage.
It's not complete garbage because Blizzard is going to come out with a bunch of pirates that are going to make pirate decks viable. And they're going to find a way to make it so that your pirates are immune for one turn.
Wow.
So that you can play Skycap'n Crag the following turn.
Did you get a scroll that I did not get? I didn't get that information.
It's the scroll of pirate optimism.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So in that scenario, sure. But outside of that scenario, pirates are, at least to me, pirates seem so far from viable that I don't even think one card in addition to this would make pirates viable. Do you? It feels like they're 3 cards away.
I can envision a scenario where rogues can take a pirate route. Because let's be fair, this Inspire mechanic hurts rogues more than any other class. Because rogues are the class that hero powers the least.
Yeah.
So giving rogues good pirate options, I can see, because like the nice thing about Skycap'n Crag is it has charge.
Yeah.
All right. Sure. So if you're able to flood the board with pirates, there may be some card that floods pirates, that gives you pirate tokens and all this stuff. And then if you play that combo with Skycap'n Crag and Cold Bloods or Shadow Steps, you might find a new pirate miracle deck.
Yeah, I guess that's interesting. If Ball of Spiders was called Ball of Pirates.
Nope, not even then would I run that card.
Ball of Pirates and their 3/3s. There you go. Then you'd run it.
Okay.
Okay. Let's talk about Ball of Spiders then. This card looks so bad. And you know there must have been some back and forth balancing, right? Like, okay, what if it costs 3? And they test and like, oh, it's too good at 3. And 6 just seems too expensive. Would you even play it at 5?
I would play it at 4.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Probably only at 4. Now, that being said, I'm very glad that it's at 6. For one reason, I hate Web Spinner. And I think that Web Spinner should not exist in competitive play.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that if they were going to make a card like this, they made it so that it was unplayable.
Yeah, okay. I think that's fair. Would you also like the cost of Implosion to go up to 6?
No. I think Implosion is fine because that's just a die roll.
Okay, fair enough. All right, let's move on to these totem cards. This is interesting. So let's start with Draenei Totem Carver. Battle Cry, +1/+1 for each totem you have for only 4. So it's really interesting. Remember before they didn't have a good 4-drop, Shamans didn't. And then in GVG they got that amazing guy, and he didn't rescue them even though people thought he would. So is this the card that's going to rescue Shaman?
I think that Shaman got a lot of very well-designed cards in this set.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect example of one of them. And I'm not sure if it's going to be enough to save Shaman because, unfortunately, giving Shaman balanced cards isn't really helping make Shaman reliable.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, that is one of the problems, right? All the other classes have gotten imbalanced cards over the last few sets.
Right.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, if you get for 4 a 6/4, that seems really good, but we thought that was going to be good from the other 4-drop, and it turns out that wasn't quite enough. And this is a little bit more situational. What do you think about the Thunder Bluff Valiant then? Giving your totems +2. I mean, if he hangs around.
Yeah, same thing. I think it's. I think this is also very well designed, very balanced. A 3/6 for 5 is a stable enough body that makes you want to play this card. I think that this card is going to make Bloodlust Shaman decks very relevant, and this card is going to make playing against Shaman very awkward for a lot of classes because One of the problems with Shaman now is there's no reason to care about any totems that aren't spell power totems. Now, when
Sort
this
of.
card comes out, you have to pay attention to every totem. You have to run your 4 attack minions into a totem. It's really awkward.
Yeah, I mean, I think now there's a decision, right? Because of Flame Tongue Totem, you have to think about it, and you're torn. And I think you're right in that you're going to be less torn. You're if they start running, if you see any of these combo cards, you know you have to take off every totem. And as we're going to see, that's not going to be that easy. Totems are coming more rapidly. And so, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see if this totem is going to be good. The totem deck. What's your gut
Right.
feeling, D? Is the totem deck going to be good, or is it just going to be too balanced?
I think that it's going to be viable. I don't think it's going to be top tier. Um,
Yeah,
Now, I think that I think that's fine. I think that's a step in a very good direction for Shaman.
right.
And it feels that so far these cards that are coming out are lending themselves to very board control oriented styles of gameplay, and Shaman plays that better than any other class. So Shaman could sneakily be much better than we're even expecting based on just the set of cards that are coming out.
Sure, that'd be interesting. So, do you think this is going to supplant sort of the traditional mid range that keeps hanging around with every set? Mid range still hangs around as one of the best options for Shaman, even though it's not a great option.
Mid range can become more of a hybrid. It could still run a lot of these cards. It may not be running some of the smaller tickling token cards like Haunted Creeper. It may not find room for it anymore, but it will still play in a similar way, but be more reliant on totems, and it might just run Bloodlust
Yeah,
as a one of.
I think it will run Bloodlust for sure if it goes the totem route.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on then. Um, Effigy is a pretty exciting card to me. Um, the fact that it just gets resummoned and does so duplicate is pretty cool, except it's hard to set up, and then it just goes back to your hand, and that can be good, especially if you're able to use it with a heal bot or something. But Effigy seems interesting in that it comes right back into play. What do you think about
Yeah, okay. So this is another one of those cards that I don't think should exist in competitive play.
that? Interesting.
But I think that it is still uh, well balanced enough. I don't see it as being any better or any worse than duplicate.
Mm, I think it. I think you're right, and you're wrong. And I think you would probably disagree with the statement that in some decks it's going to be worse than duplicate, but in other decks it's going to be quite a bit better than duplicate.
Uh,
And what I mean by that is because you don't have to use the mana to resummon the card, um, it feels like it's going to be stronger in decks that want sort of that immediate board control. Whereas duplicate will be better in the decks where you really want to target a specific card to try to bring it back.
the thing is, though, is that the reason why you chose the cards that are in your deck is because you like those better at their mana point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with Effigy, there is like a tremendous chance that you're not getting that card that you played in your deck, so you're strictly getting something worse. The trade-off is, um, yeah, you don't have to spend a mana to replay it, but you don't get 2 copies of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a really tough thing to evaluate and balance. I do think this though. I think that decks that run Effigy will probably also run Duplicate. So it may not even be a decision that people have to make.
Wow, you actually think they're going to run both?
Yeah, why not?
I don't know about that. That seems like it might be too much. It might be too difficult to pull off.
I don't know, man. There are a lot of mage decks that are running at least 3 secrets as it is. Why not have those 3 secrets be effigies and duplicates and go for a board control oriented
Sure,
mage?
that's certainly possible. What do you think about Fallen Hero? Hero power deals
Cards.
1 extra damage, 2 cost only.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, I think so.
It's well balanced. No problem with it. The hero power still costs 2 unless you're able to play it when the that 4 drop, the 2/6 for 4 is on the board. It's good. It's not overpowered. It's not underpowered.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if I like it. It feels like it's going to die probably right away. Now, if it lives, then you would have to use turn 3 to hero power instead of putting out something. And I'm just not sure that that's what you want to do.
Well, how often do you find yourself playing any mage deck and pinging with excess mana? Pretty often. Why not have that excess mana be spent to do 2 damage instead of 1? And even if it does die immediately, it's fine. It's a 2-drop. It doesn't need to win you a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think it's balanced. I think it's okay.
Yeah. It might be decent late game as well, where obviously it's not the card you want late game, but if you get a 2-drop late game and you get that 2-drop, then perhaps that's not so bad because you're at least being able to get the extra ping.
Yeah, it scales better into late game than most other 2-drops.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Maybe it's fine. Frost Giant. So you're the handlock expert here out of the two of us. Or maybe out of the world. You want to claim best handlock player ever?
I'll say it now.
Okay, cool.
The best handlock player.
So is this going in handlock, Frost Giant?
No. But
what?
It is an interesting tech option if you don't want to run Molten Giants.
What are you talking about if you don't want to run Molten Giants?
It's a strong if because you rarely Molten Giants. But if you really didn't want to run Molten Giants, if you feel that the meta is so slow that your Molten Giants are worse than Frost Giant, that is it. But I find that scenario is not going to occur. And funny. There's not going to be much room for it.
You don't think you could squeeze in a 5th giant into that deck?
Sure. I mean, you could take out a Sludge Belcher if you really want to. It just seems unnecessary. It seems like it's overkill. If Handlock is lacking anything, it's not threats. Let's put it that way.
That's true. I'm racking my mind about what deck this would fit in. Is there a deck? I mean, certainly maybe something like Giant's Mage it could fit in. It just seems like Handlock is the natural spot for it. But I was having the same thought of, well, when does it go in? You certainly couldn't have it in over Mountain Giant or Molten Giant because it doesn't satisfy either of those spots. I don't know. I guess I'll say fifth Giant for Handlock. That's where it goes.
No, it'll just be in Inspire decks.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
It'll be the big guy in Inspire decks, and there are probably going to be more big guys in Inspire decks, and you might have a Control Inspire deck that's going to be running Frost Giants.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. All right, so you mentioned the Kodorider before. You think he's good? I'm a little bit torn on him. It feels kind of like Karen, and Karen's kind of fallen out of favor.
It's kind of like Karen Bloodhoof, except that you don't get Karen and Bane on the board at the same time, right? This card is going to be great in Druid decks.
Be great in Druid decks. Now, why is that?
Because Druid decks, when you can play the Kodorider along with the hero power, if you can play 2 3/5s for 8 mana, or even with Innervates, be able to play a Kodorider with another threat and use your hero power, you're threatening Savage Roar much consistently than you even are now.
Yeah, I guess that's reasonable. I guess I hadn't also thought about if you can Innervate him out on turn 4, and then it's very unlikely on turn 4 your opponent can actually kill him. And then on turn 5, you may be able to summon, and maybe he even lives another turn. And then at that point, you're getting an incredible amount of value out of him.
Right. Well, keep in mind, though, the 3/5 War Kodo is not a Kodorider.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
if it was, it would be broken. It would be a broken card.
Right. Now, another thing is this is a neutral card. So decks like the Mage deck, if your 6/6 Dragon sticks on the board late in the game and you're able to play the Kodorider and hero power multiple times,
sure.
Yeah,
I
think it's fine.
It's funny because I feel like we're seeing a lot of cards that at least have been spoiled so far where there's a lot of ifs attached to them, right? If the Inspire deck ends up being good, then this card is going to be good. Whereas I think in the past we've seen more cards that are just, oh wow, that card's broken good. Whether or not that's accurate, right? We've had a lot of people say a card was too good, and then it turns out it actually wasn't that great.
Right.
Um,
I think what we're looking at here is we're looking at a possible strong shift in the way that Hearthstone is played, because um, let's take a let's consider a different card game as an example. I don't know if you ever played the game Duel Masters.
I've never even heard of that game, let alone
Right,
played it.
Duel Masters is like it felt a lot like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic the Gathering spinoff kind
Okay.
of game. But just to give you a quick idea of the way the games felt like they were played, was someone ended up having a tremendous board that snowballed out of control with way too many threats for you to be able to handle. And then
Mm,
that person won the game. That's
sure.
how a lot of games felt like they played out. Feels like that's what's going to happen with Hearthstone, with
Mm,
Inspire decks. Because it's nice to be able to say, well, there's the Kodorider, but that's just the one threat. If there are a lot of these Inspire cards that summon totems,
yeah.
not totems, tokens. When Inspire is used, when a lot of these decks come out and you see multiple threats, there are very few decks that can actually handle multiple primary target threats comfortably. So
Yeah.
Coda Rider might easily have a chance to fall out of control if a 5 drop was played before that is snowballing.
Yeah. That's true. Um, I think one of the cards I'm most excited about is Lock and Load. And the reason is that I feel like maybe it's going to push Hunter in a slightly new direction. And that might be wrong. It might just go right into mid-range Hunter, which already has, Hunter's Mark, Kill Command, Animal Companion, Unleash the Hounds, and maybe it just slots right in. But I could see a Hunter deck moving a little bit more spell heavy, adding things like tracking when right now it's more of a tech card or an optional card.
Control Hunter is going to be better. It's probably about it.
And do you think it's going to
Um,
slot into mid-range? I feel like it is.
do you really want to think about the mid-range hunter games you're playing now? Do you really want to spend 2 mana on lock and load?
I don't know. Man, it's
Like,
interesting.
like how comfortably does it fit into your turns?
Yeah, it really doesn't
How
if you curve out well. But on those games where you curve out poorly, it could help fix things. But then this card is helping you curve out poorly. So it's an interesting question.
it's
Um,
helping you curve out poorly, and it's giving you random hunter cards. Uh, Random hunter cards aren't actually very good. How many hunter cards do you actually see being played in hunter decks?
um,
It's a very
quite.
small set of hunter cards that are played in all hunter decks.
Yeah, but there's a lot of good hunter cards, but definitely there are plenty of not good hunter cards. So I think we'd have
That
to
being
do the
said,
math on that.
all right, that being said, it is when you evaluate the random hunter cards that you get. Obviously, the threshold is a bit lower because they're not taking up a slot in your deck.
Hmm.
But you have to get 2 spells off of lock and load for it to warrant a spot in your deck over whatever random hunter card you get, right?
Yeah,
Because you might as well have been playing that card in your deck in the first place.
sure. Yeah, it'll be interesting. But like you said, I am excited to see if a new. I mean, it'll certainly spawn a new hunter archetype. The question is, will it spawn a new viable hunter archetype? And I'm hoping it will, but I'm not sure that it will.
Yeah, probably not. But this, if I'm not mistaken, this and Ball of Spiders are the only 200 cards we've seen so far. So
Hmm.
there may be some other really cheap hunter spells that are impactful
Yeah,
that come out.
we'll have to see. Could be interesting. What do you think about Lowly Squire?
This card's bad.
Yeah, that was my impression as well. I saw other people thinking that it might be good. It dies to everything. It doesn't really accomplish what a one drop in aggro decks generally does something, right? So you have Leper Gnome that grow or that does the damage, or you have a Worgen Infiltrator who hides to make sure he does his damage. Squire seems a little bit blah.
This card is strictly worse than Undertaker
Oh yes,
right
I
now.
mean it doesn't grow
Right.
defensively.
Well, no,
Oh,
even
you mean the
Undertaker now.
current Undertaker?
Yeah, current
Oh,
Undertaker is
okay.
strictly worse than current Undertaker because current Undertaker, you're playing a 2 drop that buffs it.
Hmm.
Lowly Squire, you're using a hero power to buff it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I don't. I mean, in draft maybe it'll be viable, but I don't. I hesitate to say we won't see it in constructed play because who knows? In an Inspire deck, maybe that helps it curve out and people actually play it. Um,
Yeah, that'll be fine in arena. A lot of these cards are going to be fine in arena.
yeah,
Loaded Squire is a perfectly fine one drop to have in arena. I'm
sure.
not going to feel bad about picking it, but
Yeah.
I'll feel really bad about putting it into my even in my Inspire decks. I just don't see a point.
What do you think about Tuskar Totemic getting for only three? You get a 3/2 and a random totem, and now we have better totems with the Totem Golem. You could get the Draw Totem. You could get Flame Tongue. I mean, there's some reasonable totems to get.
I think this is also a very well designed and well balanced card. I think that the randomness is balanced by the fact that you're paying only one mana for the totem.
Hmm.
Because though the hero power costs 2 mana, each of those totems are independently 1 mana valued minions,
Right.
except for the Searing totem. The Searing totem is a wisp.
Sure.
Actually, no, it's a 1 mana minion because it has the totem tribe. So yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. I'd play it
Yeah.
in my bloodlust decks.
Yeah. In the Bloodlust Totem deck. Yeah. I think it'll be one of the key cards on that deck. And what about?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure if it's going to warrant a spot over other 3 drops, but I don't think it's a particularly bad card.
Yeah. I think Totem Golem is really strong for some sort of aggro deck.
Yeah, this card's amazing. Like, you know okay, so Spider Tank is unbalanced.
Yeah.
Like, just straight up, that card is unbalanced.
Right.
You get to play for 2 mana.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I get that the Overload is 1, but I will gladly give up 1 mana my future turn to play Spider Tank on turn 2. Can you imagine coining out this
Oh
on
my.
turn 1?
That's
It's
a good
insane.
point. Yeah. It's gonna be strong. And then if you play it on turn 2, then on turn 3 you're still able to make a totem. And in your worst case scenario, and in this deck, if he goes in a totem deck, that's fine. You're getting a totem that you're gonna end up using.
If you play it on turn 2, you play another Totem Golem on turn 3.
Yeah,
It's fine. It's a Spider Tank. This
that's a
card
good
is so
point.
good.
You can follow up with another totem golem. Yeah, it looks really strong. I think it just goes in every Shaman deck, regardless of what it's a
Absolutely.
totem.
It doesn't matter if it's a Totem Bloodlust deck or not. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think we can agree that this is probably the most powerful. It's the most obvious include in most decks that we've seen out of the cards spoiled so far.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, if this card existed now, like regardless of all this, like if none of these other cards existed, but Totem Golem were in the game today, Shaman would be a much more valuable deck. It will be seen about 10 to 15% of the time on the ladder, when right now it's being seen less than 2% of the time.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable thought. Okay, let's look at two other cards that were spoiled. We've got the Garrison Commander. You can use your hero power twice on your turn, and it's a neutral. I don't know. What do you think? What hero powers are you wanting to use twice on your turn? Now, obviously, in an Inspire deck, that's going to be good.
This is an interesting card because it is a 2/3 for 2, which is perfectly fine stat wise.
Right.
So since there's no drawback on its stats and it's 2 mana, it's hard to discredit the card at all, regardless of what its effect is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, given you being able to use your hero power twice in your turn, kind of makes this card a little bit scary. Now, I get that there aren't a lot of hero powers that you want to use twice, and you especially can't use them twice on turn 3.
Right.
But as soon as you play this card later on in the game, in a Shaman deck or a Mage deck that's running that dragon, people are going to be scared of this card. That being said, I doubt that it's going to see much play, simply because you're not going to be playing it on turn 2,
Right.
most likely.
I mean, it gives you flexibility that you could use as a 2-drop. I'm thinking of Hunter as a good example. I mean, if you use it on turn 2, you get some board pressure. If you use it turn 6, like let's say, or we'll say even later, let's say the game goes longer than you expected, you're about out of cards, you're able to, you draw this and you say, oh no, I got a 2-drop, and they say, oh, that's fine, I can then hero power twice as well. And so you're pushing more damage, maybe you're triggering an Inspire. It just feels like another card that we really need to see how this Inspire synergy is going to work out.
Now that you mention it, though, I think that two decks that are going to benefit most greatly from this, or two classes, outside of Shaman, I think Shaman benefits very well from it, is our Warlock and Hunter.
Oh, geez, Warlock.
Yeah,
Double draws? That's pretty good.
Right, because Face Hunter decks with a Garrison Commander, this is more terrifying than Knife Juggler. and it's a 2/3 instead of a 3/2. And again, Warlock decks, like if a Handlock is playing Garrison Commander, though highly unlikely that you'll see a Warlock run a Garrison Commander if it's a Handlock. But if they can run Zombie Child, they can run Garrison Commander, I guess.
I guess. I'm going to have to disagree with you there.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But if someone comes up with a good Handlock build and they run Garrison Commander, it's great. A combo Warlock decks like Malygos Warlock and Arcane Golem Warlock, they'd love to be able to draw twice on their turn.
Yeah. Sure. It was pointed out that, of course, synergies like Maiden of the Lake, getting 2, if you pay 2 and you get 2 hero powers, that would be pretty amazing.
Yeah.
What do you think about Silverhand Regent?
It's a neutral. That's not even a Paladin card.
Yeah, it's a neutral.
It's really interesting. Now, the problem I have with it is that classes that aren't Paladin don't get to play Quartermaster. Now, so therefore, classes that aren't Paladin aren't going to get much of a benefit from this card, because what decks are going to benefit from it? Druid and Shaman.
Yep, that's what I was thinking.
Are probably the only ones I can name. Shaman has better options than this that we've seen already.
Right.
To run. I'd rather run the one that gives you a totem.
Yeah.
The 3/2, if I'm running a 3-drop. And Druid doesn't need this card. Even today, if this card existed now, it wouldn't be played.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well. Again, it feels like a card that could fill the 3-drop role in an Inspire deck.
Yeah, now Paladins, if they want to run an Inspire deck and aren't going to be running Muster for Battle, then they could run this. I don't see why they would run this over Muster for Battle, to be completely honest.
Yeah, and you also have Alder Peacekeeper in that slot, who's amazing. It's one of the troubles that Blizzard is going to have moving forward, is every time they design a card, it's not viewed in a vacuum, right? It's, can this be run over the already awesome cards that are run in that slot?
Right. Now, what'll be seen, though, is there are cards that may interact with you even playing Inspire cards.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. We haven't seen those yet.
And that's going to tremendously influence things. There are going to be cards that interact with tokens that may be in more decks than simply Druid and Shaman, and obviously the Paladin recruits. But as it stands right now, with what we've seen, I don't see this card being played.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that. There's one more card we haven't taken a look at that we should look at. The new guy, Justicar Trueheart. Let me bring that up. He seems quite...
Oh, man, I haven't seen this guy yet.
Oh, you haven't seen him yet? Oh, wow,
Nope.
Okay. I'm looking forward to this then. Except for that it got messed up. Alright. The suspense is building for poor D lineman. He hasn't even seen him yet. Can't believe you haven't seen him. He's so good. It's not working. Bad radio. Alright. We got it. Here he is. Boom. Alright, so he changes your hero power and makes it better. It comes into play. So he's a 6/3 for 6, which is incredibly expensive, and then makes your hero power better.
Alright, let's see this. Oh, my goodness. So I guess it scales everything up by an order of 1. Summon a totem of your choice.
Yeah. And it's a permanent buff. So you just have to play him. The problem is, it's a 6-drop with only 3 health, which is pretty dicey.
I don't care. I love these. What? Look at this rogue hero power now. What?
Yeah, but I mean, the problem I have with him is that's your turn 6 in the best case scenario. So he's really only going in, a control deck. I wouldn't think that a mid-range deck is that excited about having the hero buffed near the end of the game. Maybe a hero would. I mean, a hunter would get one more damage. I don't know.
Okay, so let's talk about each of those archetypes then. Let's talk about the control archetype.
Sure.
As it stands right now, the decks that are running viably for control are warrior,
Mm-hmm.
um, priest,
Sure.
um,
Maybe paladin
sure, paladin.
and
There are
freeze
some
mage.
there's a popular control warlock list. That seems to be it. I mean, there's grinder mage, I guess, and but it's not really a thing. So out of those decks, I see the warrior hero power getting tremendously better.
Mm-hmm.
I see the priest hero power. Not okay. To be fair, that doesn't really help the control archetype very much. It would help more of a mid-range sort of priest build
Mm-hmm.
that's focusing more on having fat minions.
Right.
Paladin one is not actually being helped much for control, so I guess I can see it not being the best benefit to control. Now, aggro, yeah, it's not going to be seen in aggro decks. It's a 6-drop.
Yeah.
But mid-range decks, this card is going to be killer
Hmm.
because mid-range decks are going to be able to sustain pressure throughout the entire game now.
And are you also thinking that maybe he lives a turn as well because if you're able to control the board well enough, maybe he even is able to trade for a reasonable minion.
Well, who cares about him sticking on the board for a turn?
Who cares? Okay,
Like,
fair enough.
yeah, he's a 3 health minion on turn 6. That's not going to happen. Let's be real. But if you're a mid range deck and you're able to sustain pressure to this point, and you can play this card and you're not dead, which is not unlikely because we see Emperor Thaurissan being played a lot on empty boards.
Mm-hmm.
It happens a lot, right? So now if this card is being played on an empty board, now you're sustaining pressure throughout the entire game. You're summoning 2 tokens a turn as a paladin. You get to roll spell power totem whenever you want. As a druid, that druid hero power is disgusting. It's better than claw.
Yeah, that
You
is
get
a
to
good
do
one.
that every turn. Now
Um,
your mage hero power is shadow form. It's so good.
yeah, I disagree. I don't think it's that good. I don't think we're gonna see it played a lot. But I think it'll be
All right.
interesting.
Well, that's
Gentleman's wager.
I'm willing to bet. I'm willing to wager that Justicar Trueheart
Uh-huh.
is going to be seen more often than the Mage Dragon.
The Kodorider dragon.
Yes, yes.
The Kodorider dragon's garbage. What kind of bet is that?
What do you mean it's garbage? It's fine.
If the Inspire deck is good, then he'll be fine. But just as he is. How
If the
about
Inspired
this?
deck isn't good, Justicar Trueheart is just as bad, isn't it?
I've got one for you. Will you wager that Justicar Trueheart is seen more than the awesome Shaman 2-drop than that totem? No, you won't. Don't be crazy.
So wait. Are we talking about the rate at which we see these cards in decks that can play them?
Yes, the percentage of decks
Oh,
that
absolutely not.
would
No,
want to
no,
play
no
them.
way.
Yeah, okay.
No way. But
I know it's a crazy
I,
comparison.
I think that it's a fair wager to say that this will be played more than that totem card, and it'd still be a balanced rage wager if we're talking just like the breadth of cards.
Okay, let me rephrase it. Do you think it's going to be the epic? So let's flash back to GVG. GVG only has one good legendary that's neutral. That has some good ones that just don't see play. Do you think Lion or Trueheart not is going to be as good as Doctor Boom, but do you think it's going to be played as the most popular legendary from the neutral legendaries?
No, but it's going to be played more. Well, I mean, out of the legendaries that we've seen so far out of this set, yes. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so I'll say this. This is going to be seen more than that 4 or 5.
Then what was the fourth? Oh,
Then the Nexus Champion Saraad.
yeah. Okay. That may be. I feel like there's not many cards from this release that I think, oh my goodness, this is going to go into every deck. And I think that's probably a good thing. Instead,
That's a very
these
good
cards
thing.
seem very well crafted and balanced. And I think the bottom line for me coming away from this is I'm really looking forward to the rest of the set to see how all of it comes together. Because Blizzard didn't just design random cards that suck together. So
Right.
this is going to synergize somehow, and some really cool archetypes are going to come out of it. I think that's my takeaway.
Yeah.
What's your takeaway, D?
My takeaway is that I'm glad that that 6 mana Hunter spell is terrible because
Ball of
I'm glad that I'm not
spiders.
going to see that card played.
We're going to call it
It's
Ball of Hatred.
web spinner, effigy, unstable portal, pile destroyer. They all need to die. They all need to die in a flame of non-competitive cards.
That's how I feel about Implosion these days. All right.
Implosion's
Well,
fine. You're just salty.
yeah, that's true. Well, thanks for coming by, checking out our. I don't want to call it the set review because it's only a partial set review, but our initial first blush reactions to the cards that were spoiled. And both D. Lyman and I look forward to the rest of the set being spoiled and coming out. And we'll come back to you with more of our thoughts on these cards as they get spoiled.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's that.